afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Sustainable Solutions Reflection for the Next Generation speaker series. This is our second talk of the series, and I'm Dr. Cassandra Hansen, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the Environmental Science, Policy, and GIS programs at Johns Hopkins University Advanced Academic Program. Our Sustainable Solutions Seminar Series focuses on real-world problems and the deconstruction and decoding of these problems by practitioners and how they leverage technology, policy, and the private sector to form long-lasting solutions for these problems. So you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have questions as the presentation is going, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, but you will have time to, we'll be able to ask those questions for you at the end. Our presenter today will be interviewed by Albert Cho. Al is the Chief Strategy and Digital Officer at Xylem, a $5 billion global water technology provider dedicated to solving the world's water challenges. Previously, Cho had worked as a senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary at the U.S. Department of State, where he was a White House Fellow and served on the Secretary of State's policy planning staff. Al serves on the board of directors of the U.S. Water Alliance and the Canadian Water Network, the program committee of Singapore International Water Week, and the editorial advisory board of World Water. Al was the first presenter of this series, and his presentation recording is available on our AAP JHU YouTube channel. Al will be interviewing our presenter today, Kate Henningsen, who will be speaking about how energy data can help fight climate change. Kate is the Chief Operating Officer at Arcadia, a climate crisis fighting technology company based in Washington, D.C. Kate joined Arcadia in 2015 as the 5th employee and currently oversees Arcadia's product, engineering, analytics and data science, marketing, and business operation functions. And she spends her time scaling Arcadia at every level for sustained growth and impacts, as well as contributing to the overall strategy and vision of the company. Prior to joining Arcadia, Kate was a litigator at an international law firm, a deputy chair at the Clinton Global Initiative, and has worked on several political and policy campaigns. She's a proud native of Wisconsin, where growing up on the lake instilled a deep appreciation of the outdoor world. She's a member of the Solar Energy Industries Association Women's Empowerment Committee and the National Women's General Counsel Network. Kate has degrees from Georgetown and Oxford universities and lives on Capitol Hill with her husband and her 2 daughters. And I just want to thank you both so much for being here today. And I'm going to stop sharing and turn over the seminar series to you folks.
Outstanding. Well, thanks so much, Cassie. And welcome everyone for our second seminar of the series. Again, I wish we could do this in person, and hopefully there will be a chance to do something before the end of the series, but really grateful that we're able to do it virtually. So just by way of quick introduction, I've known Kate now for almost 20 years when we were graduate students ourselves. And she's always been one of those high impact, high integrity, high intellect people that you knew would go off and do great things. And so it's been really inspiring to watch her take the energy, data, and tech world by storm. But we all know that it's never exactly a straight line from one point to another. And so I'm also just really excited to get to interview my friend Kate and hear her story and get to share it with all of you. So we'll go for about half an hour or so, and then turn it over to Cassie to raise questions from the online audience. And so any of you, if there's something that you want to ask Kate and kind of go deeper in any particular area, please feel free to use the Q&A or chat function, and we'll be monitoring that. And so without further ado, maybe we start, Kate. Could you maybe tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and thinking back to when you were a student, what is it that you wanted to do professionally? And let's go from there.
Awesome. It is great to be with you all. It's great to be with Al. It is one of the rewards of life to talk to your friend of 20 years with you all. So really appreciate the invitation, and happy to chat energy for as long as you guys want to. It's a topic that I think if you're passionate about it, you want to find like-minded energy nerds, as they say. So yes, but to Al's point, I did not have a straight line career. So I was not, in an advanced degree energy program. Far from it. I actually got a political philosophy degree from Oxford, and then a law degree. So I really spent my 20s in school I can connect those dots actually from school to startup because I like to learn something new every 6 months, and the startup is actually reinventing the business every 6 months. So I can connect those two instincts, but really 20s in school, and then became a commercial litigator for 5 years. So like many people, law school is this thing that your friends do, and maybe, everybody should have a law degree, right? It's going to be so useful. And so did that and really loved the precision of the law degree, the problem solving of a law degree, but ultimately decided that was a very reactive profession. So, services industry, a service profession job is reacting to other people's problems and solving it. And you have to be really good and smart about it, but ultimately you're not really creating that value. And after we had our first daughter, there was really a drive to a desire to create more, to create something, to be creative with your hands and your time and your labor. So I had no experience in energy startup land. I had no experience in business, and so I thought, how can I pitch myself and package myself for this pivot? And what's great about law is that you know a lot about regulation, and so I thought, well, my skills could be interesting in a regulated profession, which is healthcare and energy. And so actually I did some research, and I ended up cold emailing, of all things, about 6 CEOs in energy startups and healthcare startups in DC, and was really fortunate that Kieran, our CEO, responded and walked into a room with 4 other people about 6 years ago now, and now we have 250 people and growing. So a really different switch, but I will say the ideas that legal profession can help you in a lot of ways, I do think has been true. Certainly during the early years, I was general counsel of Arcadia. I oversaw the legal function. One of the things I learned that I didn't know is that people trust lawyers, right? So I got to do things like run payroll and do all of our employment agreements, and all of a sudden, taking basically all that opportunity and that trust and then expanding my functions. The first set of things I ran was legal, and then I added on people and finance. And I think that was because those are born of sort of, we trust lawyers, they're competent people. And so that's just a reminder to all of us that there are skills and things, and you can turn into other things if you look hard enough.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm curious, as you started your search and were looking at some of the other companies that you were looking for, how did you find your way to Arcadia?
So I mean, it was really the pull of energy had been something I have been thinking about. I mean, I don't know if you all feel this way in the room, but 6 years ago, energy wasn't the same, didn't have the same energy around it, honestly, as it does now. I mean, I do think we're in a new epic and a new moment that is really exciting. But what's great about DC is there wasn't that many startups. And so it literally was just, I blasted 10 people and 2 got back to me. But then I pitched myself, right? So I made sure I wrote a legal memo to the CEO about what sort of I could bring because of my unique legal background, and really emphasize that if you're going to be in a regulated business, you want to have that perspective, even if you don't need a general counsel as your 5th employee, which he did say he got laughed at a few times in investor decks in the Series A because no one needs a lawyer. But we actually seeded a lot of interesting planks of the business. So I'll give you an example of where my lawyer and business thing started to merge. Energy is something that is universal. We do it every day, but nobody thinks about it. It is this product that is like beguiling in that way of no matter who you are, you interact with energy, but yet people think of it, we know about 9 minutes a year, nothing. And so one of the things we built into the company at the beginning was this idea that we are going to do things in the background for you because people don't know how to pick the right rate or get on the right service. And so, that it's called agency power. And so that's a legal concept we actually built into the core of the business, which is that, establish a membership, establish a relationship with Arcadia, and we'll do the smart things for you on your behalf because you're not going to know how to do it yourself. So that's just one of the ways we started to combine sort of the legal thinking with the business operation.
That's fantastic. Well, we're diving right into the core business of Arcadia. And I'm guessing there are some people in the audience who may have a familiarity with it, but may not understand all of what you do. And so I guess my next question is, can you tell us a little bit more about Arcadia, what problem it's trying to solve in sustainability, and really what's its unique approach in the world of energy?
Yeah. So you know what, when people sometimes, I do my informational coffees and sort of people want to get into renewables. The sad fact I have to tell people immediately about renewables is that it's usually construction and finance, right? I mean, it's kind of the same with water, Al. Like a lot of, it's infrastructure, right? Like renewable energy is putting plants in the ground and financing that. Arcadia is a software company in energy, which is actually a really unique way to take on the problem, and almost a singular way to take on the problem, which is, we're not owning assets, we're not developing solar plants or wind energy. We're really building a software layer that allows more choice, flexibility, innovation on top of the current energy system. So I'll dive a little deeper into what that actually means. So we've built a data platform similar to what you'll see in the fintech area is a really good analogy for us. So as you all probably know with some familiarity with energy, the utility sector on purpose, the energy sector on purpose is very siloed and fragmented. So we have a system where it's the last regulated monopoly in the US is our energy system, and it's divided by state. So you have 3,000 utilities in the United States, each regulated, each has their own monopoly over a certain territory, and they don't coalesce, meet, or go outside of it. So Georgia Power doesn't talk to PG&E, which doesn't talk to Central Maine Power. What that means then is that there's really no way to build innovation on top of that. If you want to have a national product, any national innovation that crosses state boundaries, which guess what, most products do, it's really impossible to have the sort of the modern digital infrastructure that we use all over the place and revolutionizes tons of industry, which is data. Data, digital, modern tools has really been applied to every industry to transform it, except energy. And the except energy part is not because it's not useful or not needed, it's because of the regulatory structure basically means there's no way for innovators to build on top. So what Arcadia's done is we built a platform that covers about 85% of the population. So we integrate with 200 utilities, and we're able to then get the data out of the utilities, normalize, read, write it, do things with it that both allow us to offer products and services, but then also allow third parties to start building on top of our platform. So why that's really exciting. I mean, it's exciting of itself because we're just starting to offer consumers more choice and more products in a way that energy has never been a product business, right? You turn on the light switch, it does everything I need it to do. There's so much innovation that this type of digital data can enable that really hasn't been unlocked. I think especially as we start thinking about what's to come in energy and sort of the energy revolution, we're going to electrify things, we're going to decentralize things, we're going to decarbonize things. All of that means that there's going to be much more control at sort of the consumer level. And that could be the consumer that is, a large commercial client, an individual residential client. It doesn't have to be, just a direct to consumer. It could be sort of a whole, all the consumers. And so as the consumer starts having more control over energy, they're going to want to have tools and systems to make those decisions. And so that's both what Arcadia has built and the problem it's trying to solve. One of the great lines we say is, if the last 150 years of power was really about the supply, getting the generation, getting it into the cities, really the supply part of the equation, we think the next 100 years and beyond is going to be about the demand of energy, right? How we use energy, how we, when we use energy, the price we pay for energy, the efficiency of energy, that smartness that has to come from energy is really going to be on the consumer and the demand side.
So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about some of the products that you're able to sell through this platform.
Yeah, I think we love the electric vehicle use case. And so, right now, if you open up a electric vehicle app, like the consumer app, for example, it's going to tell you where to charge your car. It's, like, oh, there's a charging station 2 miles away, go drive to it. The type of innovation that our platform is very soon going to enable, we're going to have some big announcements in Q1, is, what rate should I be on? So in San Diego Gas and Electric, one of my favorite anecdotes is their table of contents for their electricity rates, their tariffs, is 117 pages long. So they have 3,000 different rates you can be on as an SDG&E customer. They have about 65 rates if you're an EV customer, right? So how, as a customer, am I supposed to navigate that? Well, you're going to open an app pretty soon. That app's going to be from your car manufacturer that you get, and it's going to tell you, oh, great, what rate you should be on. We'll automatically switch you to that rate because we know all the algorithms, we know how to do it. We're going to tell you how much it's going to charge you cost to charge your car, right? So you'll have some indication, great, you know, I know that a gallon of gas costs $3. I have no idea what a kilowatt hour is or costs, but we're going to have that smart technology. And then we're going to tell you, you know, the best time to charge your car. So not only how much it's going to cost, how you can optimize. In 2 years, we're going to do things like we're going to sell power back and forth from your car to the grid. Really, that, you know, that's the next level that we don't think is quite there yet. So that's just one, you know, great use case. We see a lot of stuff also, and that's really on like the residential energy data. There's tons of stuff, obviously, with building smart products. You know, real estate and energy are so closely linked. As buildings think about efficiency, you know, a building owner that has, let's say, 3,000 properties across different states is pretty blind to how their entire portfolio is operating. And so bringing that, you know, company level data. So, you know, for example, if you pull, we also have a great slide where if you pull the date from each of the 200 utilities that we're connected to, it's represented 211 ways, right? So a simple date can be represented in so many ways. And so you can't normalize it if you're a company. How do you use that? How do you put that in a spreadsheet? And so just those sort of simple things really unlock the ability then to use energy data in a way that hasn't been possible before.
I love that explanation of Arcadia as a really kind of the first platform company for energy data. One of the things that you alluded to, and also I don't know if the white paper went out to everybody, but a lot of it is around the potential impact on the climate and climate change. And before we keep going into some of the other questions that I'd love to ask, just on the product side, can you help the community here understand what impact this kind of data platform can have to help people address climate change?
Yeah, I mean, I think the use of energy is so important, right? So we want electrification, which means, and we also, you know, EVs are coming. So we think that the electric load, so the amount of electricity we use is going to go up by about 40 to 60% in the next 50 years with that change, both the retrofitting of gas to electric and then the transportation becoming all electric. If you can use power smartly, then you don't actually have to build many more power plants and generation. And it's really the smart use of power that allows you to, you know, grow in the way modern society wants to without increasing the carbon footprint. So, you know, we think of a couple of things, right? It's just the smarter use. So telling your car, like the price signal of electricity, if people can follow price signals, that means they're also usually following when it's more efficient to use power. So let me just exit onto a quick energy nerd, you know, make sure we all, so the dirtiest point, like how the power markets work, and I'm sorry if you all know this, is it's a bid, right? So you bid up the price of power. The more power you use, basically the dirtier into the ecosystem you go. So wind and solar is zero marginal cost, right? Once you've built the power plant, it costs $0 to turn it on because the sun and the wind are wonderful gifts that give every day. A coal plant built in 1975 is really expensive to turn on. It's had to be retrofitted to meet EPA standards that are new. It's old and clunky. It doesn't work very well. So if we can what's called shave peak demand, so basically make power more even rather than spiky, that in itself helps with our carbon footprint because you're using more of the clean electrons rather than the really expensive dirty ones. Coal plants don't have to come on ever again if we can use power well. More natural gas doesn't have to be built ever again if we can use power well, because renewables are the ones that are the cheapest. And so even in a market-based system like we have, controlling when and how we use power is so key to making sure we're using the best electrons. So that's really, you know, and then I just think there's efficiencies, right? So it's not only like you're using the better electrons because you're controlling when, I think it's just efficiency. So why, you know, certainly we have we can turn things on and off in a way that we haven't been able to do before. Having more analytics around when people are using power will allow them to basically make better choices. So I think both of those are really the key decarbonization aspects.
Well, I think you're making the energy nerds out there really happy. So thanks for the explanation. I want to take the conversation in a slightly different direction, which is also for the students on the call, which is, about your own career. You've had a really interesting journey where you first made the pitch to become the general counsel and start in the legal function. And over time, you talked about how people trust lawyers, and so you gradually kind of moved into more and more operational leadership. And all of this happened during a period of breakneck growth for a startup. And I just wondered if you could maybe share a little bit about what that has been like for you when you think about your own professional journey and trajectory.
Yeah, I use the word privilege a lot when describing this because it has been the privilege of my life to take this ride. And if you look at sort of the funnel of how many startups survive, right? Like a lot of startups start, a little are able to raise their first series. We just raised our Series D, which is our fifth round of funding, and we're now deep into the ecosystem of sort of a growth company, and 6% of companies ever make it that far, right? So it's a huge, wonderful thing to have picked the right horse and to found this journey to go on. So I think that so much has changed, and some is good and some's harder. And I think being able to adapt from a company that has pre-revenue 5 people into tens and millions of dollars of revenue and now 250 people. I think it is you have to be adaptable. You have to be curious. You have to go so fast that you kind of forget your mistakes and look to the next thing and be okay with that, right? I mean, I don't hope anybody doesn't believe that these are we have made so many wrong decisions and wrong turns and gotten things that we were certain of didn't turn out to be that way. And so part of this is just you have to have the fortitude and the curiosity and the hunger to solve the problem, that none of that matters, right? I mean, what's wonderful about Arcadia is that the mission carries every single employee. So the impact we all feel we're making is something that I think motivates everybody to just keep solving this problem, even if it's not perfect. I'll also say, we haven't touched on this. We're talking about data, so I'm really emphasizing the platform. One of the ways we use our platform is to subscribe community solar in 9 states. So we are the acquirer and manager. We're the largest acquirer and manager of what's called community solar, which is essentially state created programs that encourage local developers, third-party developers to build solar generation in a community, and then the community gets a guaranteed savings. So our software has enabled over a gigawatt of solar to be built. We're bringing hundreds of thousands of people onto that program. And so I think, those impacts and that motivation helps through startup land, which can be bumpy and rocky and unknown and all that stuff.
That's fantastic. It's inspiring to hear how that journey has progressed for you. And I wonder, just as my last question, whether there are any kind of life lessons or kind of key professional lessons that you've learned from your experience, from the mistakes, the successes, et cetera, that might be valuable to students who are just starting out and seeking a career to build in sustainability.
Yeah. So a couple of things. First is I do always give my email because, someone had to email me back from a cold email. And so I feel obligated. I am open for career chats if people feel motivated to talk. It's kate@arcadia.com. A lot of people have had those chats with me, and I think that they're really valuable as a way to get confident and see the landscape. And so I very much am paying back debts of kind. So, if people ever want to chat longer about a career, I'm happy to do that. Look, I think my story is one where it's not so. I think one of the first questions you asked, like, what did I want to be when I grew up, or where did I start? I thought I was going to go into politics, right? Like I totally came out to Georgetown from Wisconsin, did all the clubs, did the campaigns. And I think that was true. I think that was a genuine feeling at the time. And it turned out to not be at all what I've really loved doing. And so I think it's the humility of allowing yourself some turns and keeping your passion and keeping your confidence through those turns, because they're not mistakes, they're learning experiences, and you find something new about yourself and you grow. I mean, that's the other thing is I have a milestone birthday coming up this year, and you're a different person when you're 20 and 30 and 40. And I think that allowing yourself to be a different person, and allowing yourself to want different things is completely okay. The second thing I'll say is we are just getting started in this industry. Renewables, solar, wind, sustainability, boy, it's step one of 1,000 steps. And so in a lot of ways, you're getting in still. I've had people, when I say this, who've been working in solar since 1998 tell me I'm completely wrong. But I do think that by and large, we are just starting what's going to be a huge revolution in sustainability, that you should feel lucky because you're at the beginning. And there's going to be so much opportunity and growth. And I guarantee you there are things that you will work on that you can't even contemplate right now because this is just getting started. And so allow yourself to be excited about that, but also the unknown, because this isn't an industry that I think we've written all the rules in yet, and we shouldn't have written all the rules, and we have so much to do, that I hope that you still feel inspired and you still feel hungry, even if there's going to be a lot of unknowns to come.
Well, that's super inspiring. I think it's easy to get kind of down on all of the challenges in front of you. But I guess what I take away from your remark is how lucky are we to be the ones who are in a position to do something about it. And I just have to say thank you so much for leaving us with those really fantastic comments. I see Cassie has just popped up, and I know you've ignited a bunch of questions from the audience. And so I'm going to pass it over to her to filter those over to you.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I would love to have our group give you a virtual round of applause. That was just a really good, dialogue back and forth. So thank you so much for being here today and being a resource for our students. So I have a series of questions for you. And so I'm just going to go down my list here. Great questions coming in. So the first one is, you're looking in your crystal ball, and so can you talk to us about what a two-year timeline looks like? You mentioned about buying and selling energy from the grid. What do you predict the market trends are going to look like? And what are some of the predictions that you have for the space, or anything else that you can share on, kind of what's around the corner in your opinion? That's kind of a big question for you.
Yeah. So we're seeing a couple different trends, and I don't have a thesis statement, so I'm just going to kind of slot them into stuff. The first, I call it more than trend. I mean, you have electric vehicle manufacturers who have said they're not going to make combustion engines after 2030. You don't have to be green, you don't have to be progressive, you don't have to believe in anything. When you have Ford and Toyota and Volkswagen saying we are not making combustion engines, the EV revolution is coming. It's coming much faster in Europe. You're seeing 30% penetration. It's about 6% penetration in the US. But I definitely think that is real, that is happening, that's not going to be stopped. Second thing I think we're seeing in a general trend is, boy, corporates are spending on ESG. So environmental social governance is a thing. You're seeing it come both from top and bottom. So, you have the stock market, NASDAQ, and the Dow, plus the SEC is starting to kind of put pressure on people to do more ESG. You're seeing a groundswell from customers. So corporates are starting to, now there's asterisks and there's things, corporates are starting to lead and spend money to actually take ESG seriously. Is it greenwashing? Is it going to be real? Still to be determined, but there's really a movement that I had not seen. It was not here 6 years ago. I think it's here and it's real. And yeah, the third thing I'll say is the vehicle to grid stuff. I think if you're, Tesla has come out and said, Tesla, Sunrun, they're selling batteries, right? They are, the batteries are starting to move fast. They're moving as fast as the car and the solar installations. And so batteries are becoming a really big third part of this power puzzle. If you have batteries, you can sell, right? All of a sudden you've made a power plant of your home. And so I do think that's a real trend. I think a lot of stuff has to be built around it, but if you can have a homeowner have a battery, a homeowner is now a power plant, and there's going to be really cool financial arbitrage that happens. I think Elon Musk is very aware that he can control, the grid, and so I think those are kind of the three big trends I'm seeing in the next kind of 5 years that are gonna take off.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, Arcadia seems like it would be a wonderful partner or collaborator with the federal government. Has the federal government reached out? Are you guys able to share information from your background?
Yeah, so again, energy is universal, right? It is something that touches us all. I actually argue that utilities are a social good. They're a public good because we paid for them. I think that we are always open to collaboration. We're moving really fast and doing well right now, and so I think we have sort of our game plan of where we want to unlock growth. That does not at all mean that there won't be opportunities. I mean, I think where we work, where we actually do most of our government work is at the state level. So federal government aside, we do a lot of stuff with the state because it's the state that regulates these community solar programs. It's the state that can regulate time of use rates and how we broker customers and things like that. So we work more closely with the states, but almost as like regulators rather than partners, I would say.
All right, thank you. This next question is a GIS question because we have quite a few folks that are doing the dual degree or GIS degree in our program. So how does Arcadia use GIS data? And can you discuss what type of GIS data you acquire and where it's from? Do you think it will ever be standardized or have some sort of national source of high quality detailed grid data for hosting capacities?
So right off the bat, we've never used GIS data. So maybe you should tell me how I should be using GIS data, because obviously you're feeling some sparks. And so again, my email, let me know, give me some ideas. Our data is around interval data, customer use, customer bill rate. So really if you think of it as like anything you can find on a customer's bill, that's really where we play. We haven't yet had to do any GIS, but again, email me, tell me your ideas.
All right. You're going to be getting quite a few emails. I'll tell you that right now. We have some very talented GIS folks that are interested in the sector. Okay, so where do you see the U.S. energy in the next 10 years, and how would you compare that to the future of the global adoption rate of green energy?
So, what's great is we know that 70% of new electrons being put on the grid are clean, right? So, again, going back to marginal power, I mean, if you look at the cost curve of solar and wind since 2008 and the Obama administration, it is astronomically down into the, what is that, right? So, new electrons are going to be clean electrons. You have coal is being, the cheap price of natural gas really sunset the coal industry in the last 15 years. So I think coal is pretty much done. I think though there is still real questions about, what is our what's called base power, right? So we all know that sun and wind don't do their thing 24 hours a day. And so this is where I think the battery question is really interesting. And so, you need base load, you need load at 3 a.m. How can we use smart technology and batteries to do that rather than say, natural gas plant, right? I mean, natural gas is a very steady form of fuel. And so I think those are questions that we're still working out. I mean, I think the technology for batteries is still getting better and better, but I don't think you can discount fossil fuels until you have a base load strategy. I will say I don't personally have an opinion about nuclear. Nuclear is always the big topic in renewables. Is it renewable? Is it green? Certainly I don't think any state's getting to their RPS, their green standards, by taking away nuclear at the moment. So, I do think I've drank the Kool-Aid. I think the green revolution is here. That's what we're building. So we need to electrify everything. I think that's really the big, we have over 1 billion home devices that are still not powered by electricity. We have a transportation sector that's not powered by electricity. So you can put all the electrons on the grid you want to, but you really need to have the electrification of things to solve the climate crisis.
Excellent. I think your answer basically leads into the next question here. So beyond Arcadia, are there companies out there that are impressing you by what they're doing and leading the way for others? And are there companies or leaders that we should be watching in this sector that you would recommend?
Yeah, so a great nonprofit that just started, I mean, we were just talking about electrification, is Rewiring America, and a guy named Saul Griffin who just wrote a book called Electrify Everything. So he's just a great thought leader and really pushing the idea that we need to electrify. And then Rewiring America is this idea that, 1 billion devices he calls them home table decisions, right? Like everybody's gonna have to decide how to replace their HVAC. If they electrify, those decisions can really help our climate crisis. So they're really awesome. I think there's some really neat things happening. We have to build charging infrastructure. EV charging is just an amazing opportunity, and there's so much to build there. So I think you have some great companies that are being, EV Go, Charge Point, like really doing the hard work to build infrastructure is very admirable. Arcadia, well, I guess there is a lot of now, I talked about the ESG. There's companies, and this is really new within the last 2 years. There's so much new funding and venture funding coming into climate in a way that was not the case a couple of years ago. You are starting to see just smaller innovative startups. So there's a lot around carbon accounting. So Patch, Persephone, these are carbon accounting firms that are booming right now because businesses are starting to take their carbon footprint seriously.
Oh, interesting. Do states show interest in bringing in batteries to the kind of overarching goal for grids? And I mean, are they buying in? Is it from a state standpoint, or do you feel like it's more from the public standpoint?
Yeah, you haven't seen states. I mean, California is the most progressive on batteries. I think you're going to see some more out of Texas just because of the power crisis in February. You're not seeing much state regulator interest yet in batteries. I don't think that's really surprising. I think state regulators are just getting the handle on a lot of stuff. And so I think the battery, look, I think again, a lot of the battery stuff, because it can be attached to a building, I think it's going to come from either homeowners or grocery stores, that want to have their backup power and things like that. So I think we're seeing the battery stuff now from a private place, and then we haven't seen states as much. Sort of, there's some private development, but I wouldn't say that's very widespread.
So this is a question that was posted in the Q&A post. How can this data be leveraged to manage possible rebound effects from these cost savings that might keep fossil fuels relevant for longer? You touched a little bit about fossil fuel, but can you expand on that?
I don't know what a rebound effect is.
So maybe the questionnaire perhaps can expand on that question, and we can come back to it.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Okay. Could you share a little bit more about how and why utilities share data with Arcadia? Do you have to pay for it? Does utilities have to develop systems that share this data if they weren't there previously? Just could you expand upon that kind of workflow?
Yes. So the short answer is we've basically decided to control our own destiny, and we log into your utility account because the customer gives us permission. So we are not relying on the utility to sort of, this is kind of the problem we're solving, is that the utilities aren't made to share data. They don't have it somewhere. There's no like magic repository. It's called an API or something like that, where you can just knock on the door and get everything. So the value in the business we built is basically this brute force. The utility they're not set up to give it. And so the thing we've done is basically built the system that can go get it. And that's really the value that we're bringing. So we log into the customer's account, we get the data that way. Very similar to like if you're going to sign up for like a Venmo or sort of a neo banking, you put in your own bank credentials, and then Venmo knows where to send and how to do your money because they're accessing your bank account on your behalf. Where it's the same thing, we're accessing your utility account on your behalf.
Excellent. So another question coming in about energy storage capacities. Do you know what energy storage capacity is the minimum is available for this battery array? And there might be too much into the finite details here.
Yeah, I will, you're catching me. I don't know, my talk on battery storage, I don't. I run out of expertise at that point. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Could you provide a little bit of insight? You're coming to us with such a vast background and very impressive on all the different components that you've been a part of, and then your role in Arcadia is fantastic. You're doing so much. And what challenges have you encountered, perhaps maybe in this role or maybe in the past that you've experienced throughout, your career?
So, we've talked about energy and, but my daily thing is I operate a business, right? So I run about 75% of our business, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not energy related that I think and do every day. And so what are the big sort of challenges? I mean, right now running a business of 215 people, half of whom were hired during COVID, is strategic alignment, right? Like, how do we make sure all these disparate people are aligned towards goals? Are we holding people accountable? There's always people issues. I mean, so, as much as we're energy, and that's what I think about, it's also just running a business. And there's, we just did our annual planning process, and we're figuring out how we match big strategy to hiring goals. And those are really, I think, in a lot of ways where I spend my daily time. So, the challenges are, I mean, honestly, in a lot of ways, they're always people challenges, right? I mean, this is, machines usually do what we want them to do. People present all sorts of interesting, challenges and issues, and also greatness. So yeah, how do you engender cross-team collaboration in the Zoom world? How do you get people to know each other in the Zoom world and trust each other in the Zoom world? How do you make sure people, are working on the right thing so you're not wasting resources against your product and your operations roadmap? So those are, I think, the challenges that are sort of the operating part of my job.
That's great. Thank you. And I know for many of our students that are out there right now, we've just started our finals week, and many of them are wrapping up senior thesis capstones. For folks that are new to this group, a new student in the program, and they want to enter this industry, and they want to hear from you, where should they be focusing on to help move forward this industry? What kind of advice can you give them? I know Al asked you, kind of a larger question on advice to students out there, but more specifically about moving the industry forward. What could you share with them?
Well, first of all, good luck on your finals. I know this is always the nervous time. You're like, can I make this? Because I got to do so much work, and then it's Christmas break. So good luck, everybody, and keep your energy up. So what's great is that there are more choices now than you've ever had before. Like, I can say that pretty much full stop. So you could choose a lot of different flavors, and it can honestly be anything from ocean to car to software to solar developers, right? I think there's probably 50 different routes you can now take, which I do not, a couple of years ago, that wasn't the case. So there's financing opportunities. There's, car manufacturing opportunities. So I think it's, going, again, trying something, right? I mean, I think it is trying something, seeing where you land, but knowing that there are more ways to pivot a career in sustainability now than I think there has been before. And in energy, I mean, I think there's just so much happening in energy. I guess the only other sort of advice I would say is you could also, Europe and Australia are about 10 to 15 years ahead of the States. And so, if there's something you don't see in the States, allow yourself a little purview. What's going on in Germany? What's going on in Australia? I mean, if you guys are passionate about battery storage, what I'm hearing, Australia is just kicking butt on battery storage right now. And so don't limit yourself just to, America. And frankly, even in a remote world, maybe you don't have to move there. So that's the only thing I would sort of encourage you is if you're not finding the opportunities here, you have, Europe and Australia that are probably a decade and a half ahead of where we are now.
That's great. So as you're building Arcadia, I mean, you were the 5th employee, and now you have a team of 250. Are you finding that advanced degrees in energy policy, climate, environmental science are things employers are seeking from that sector side of things? Or do you recommend a different type of path of getting in the field and rolling up your sleeves? What do you recommend in this sense?
So we'll share secrets here. So I'm also, I'm on our people committee, which means I review all the compensation and hiring decisions. And yes, we will give people more money, you guys, if they have a master's degree in energy and environment. So there you go. So, we actually do reward that. I think actually we're trying to marry technology and energy, and having energy experience is, it's a valuable thing in our business, in what we're trying to do. And so it's not a field where I think you have, my experience, you don't have casual observers of energy, right? You have people who've committed to the path for 10, 15, 20 years. And so you're not going to have, with tech companies, people will kind of flit around. You'll sort of have a lot of experiences. If someone knows energy, it's because they've really committed to that. And so they're actually a harder they can be a harder person to find because you don't just sort of have one energy job and do 10 other things. You usually commit to the field. So I would say yes to advanced degrees. If you're thinking about just kind of tying the two questions together, Cassie, if you're thinking about experiences you want to get, I would also say there's a lot of ways to just join like trade associations, like American Wind Society, SIA. You can sort of enter and become this get into the ecosystem of what the associations are doing. I think learn a lot about, well, here my advice, maybe join an association. There's great people to follow on Twitter. If you want to like have what's going on in energy, like Shale Khan is a great guy to follow on Twitter. The Energy Gang podcast, which just went to Canary Media, I don't know what it's called now. Just start listening to that ecosystem, which I bet you guys probably already are deep into, and you'll get so many ideas of what's out there and who people are talking to and about that. There should be tons of lights going off, hopefully.
That was great. Thank you so much for just that insight and your knowledge, and just from your entire background. I know the students appreciate just having that personal connection and hearing from, Arcadia, the top industries out there and what you're doing, and really the cutting edge technology that you're applying. I think we're nearing the end of the seminar series here, and I really want to, again, give you a virtual round of applause. I know there, if you're looking in the chat or the questions, there's been so many wonderful questions coming in and comments. And so for us as a collective group, we just really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule. And I also want to thank Al for reaching out to you and reaching out to his old friend and coming to us with the topic idea. And so this has just been so wonderful. And thank you all for joining us for this session. Do you have any closing comments or remarks that you'd like to make to our group?
I will just say, thank you for letting me talk to you guys for 45 minutes. It's very weird not to sort of see people and say hello, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Al. As always, great to see you, and really appreciate you guys putting this on today.
All right. With that said, I want to wish everyone happy holidays. Good luck on your finals. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you in the 3rd edition of the speaker series. Take care.
Bye. Yeah, bye.